just
Okay,
do that.
and I'll shut up and I'll be nice.
No, you don't have to. We don't have to be nice here. Hi, folks. Hi, folks. Those that you are live, aka Miss Carlene. Maybe a couple other people will join, maybe not. I've had several of these, you guys, where I end up just talking to myself, and it's all good. I can do it. I live on Zoom. My life is in a Zoom call, basically 24/7. So that's okay. What I was gonna say, Carlene, I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes here to see if anybody jumps on the live call. So that means you get to hear me sit and blab about things non-related, kind of. But Tim had posted in the reset group about a whiskey tasting. So Carlene, you should come to that if you can.
You know, I was looking at that and I need to chat with hubby. I think we're free because it's not on a Friday and that's the only thing I got going on.
Yeah. 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 I was like, you can't do it on Friday because like I won't be able to be there because I'll be doing the reset group and whatnot. So it's a Saturday, but all's welcome. We're just you don't have to drink. I mean, obviously it's a whiskey tasting thing. So it's like if alcohol's not your vibe, this might not be your vibe, but I don't drink that much and I'm still gonna go. And Murray's gonna be there hanging out. And it's really for anybody, but it's at our local gym, which is Torque Strength and Conditioning. But it's basically just Tim sponsoring it. He's a realtor at the Odd Couple Realty in St. Paul, and he's just kind of putting on a fun little kind of mix and mingle. What's the word I'm looking for? Network.
Yeah, community. And
yeah,
you
that's
to try some good whiskey. I'm all up for that.
Everybody likes to chat. Yeah, over a good cup, a good tasting of whiskey. Okay, let me pop into the Facebook group here. Make sure that there's nothing going on there. Happy 2 days late Valentine's Day. If that's like, I don't really know if people celebrate Valentine's Day. We don't really. Tim bought me a money tree, so that was kind of fun. Like, nice. Screw flowers and chocolate. He got me a money tree. So, oh, Dina's popping on here. Hi, Dina.
I miss Dina.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm trying to undo all the things and unmute and do video.
I know.
Look at this. Us three. This is kind of fun.
It's like old school.
I know.
Dina's always the prettiest one, though. I mean, she totally gets the
you
pretty.
guys, I just like made myself lay down. No. I'm not feeling 100, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get up.
You have like makeup and then here's me trying to find the correct filter of my light to make me not look so washed out.
You look beautiful. I feel like I broke all my fun reading glasses, so I'm down to like the bare bones.
I need some new ones. They feel heavy on my nose lately. I don't know if it's because I think I have what you are just getting. I just got over that and just like full. My head felt full.
Yeah, that's kind of. I was up super late one night because the storm night because I don't know, snow plows just kept me awake for like 5 hours. I think I got 2 hours of sleep. And so that, and then just coming down with something, it just.
Double whammy.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness this is on Zoom, so you two can't spread your nappy little germs everywhere.
I know, I'm happy about that. But now I feel bad recording and now
Monday,
everyone.
And I would be pissed if I got sick right now. I'm like, I'm gonna avoid everyone. Yes. But that brings me to talk about the Zoom call. Okay, so I leave for vacation. This is to everybody, replay people, live people. I'll begin my spiel now. I leave for vacation on Monday. We're going to Miami. Me, Tim, and Murray. We're gonna party hard on the beach with a baby because that's just how we roll. Kind of, not really. And we're gone until Monday through Saturday. So I don't know what I'm going to do about our Friday Zoom call yet. That's all I know. I don't really have an answer for you guys outside of I might just jump on Friday when Murray's down for a nap and do a Facebook Live and do it that way. Because it's just not going to work out to have like a formal in stone time while we're there. I'll try to give you guys a heads up of like when I'm jumping on, like, hey everyone, I'm probably gonna try to jump on around 1. But I can't guarantee that. So that's how it's gonna
Yeah.
roll. So it might just be a Facebook Live. I think that's what we're gonna do. And of course, if people aren't familiar about a Facebook Live, like I will literally, my face will just pop up in the group on a video, and I'll be doing this instead of a Zoom call. And then that video will just lives inside of our Facebook group. So that's it.
That makes sense.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was
don't
saying
stress
happy.
about it.
Yeah, I was saying happy Valentine's Day a couple days. I had the most delicious little what day is Valentine's Day? Or
was
Wednesday. So
Wednesday.
every Wednesday for my big kid job, we have to go into the office and we have like a team meeting. And you know, I bring my lunch, adulting, right? I know I have to go into work, so I have to bring my lunch. And somebody had made like these little, it was like the little baby pretzels, and they were dipped in white chocolate with like some other thing, like the perfect combination of like sweet,
Salty, sweet.
crunchy,
Yeah.
salty. It was like my jam. So I had some of those, you guys, and it was really, really delicious. But I think that's a nice hi Amy. I think that's a nice reminder for us. I see this narrative when I work with people, this fall off the wagon narrative. You guys all know what I'm talking about. I hear it time and time again, like, oh, I had a wedding this weekend, or like my job had donuts and I had one and I completely fell off the wagon, right? We're all kind of familiar with that narrative. The old Brandy eating that Valentine's Day treat on a Wednesday morning, of which I didn't really need. I wanted it. I didn't really need it. I had my meal with me, but I was like, whatever, it looks good. The old Brandy would have let that derail the complete day, right? It would have been that kind of that all or nothing mindset that we do in kind of the diet space, that black and white. And if we eat something off plan, we just decide to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then we go into that ever so nice fuck it mode. I'm sure everybody's been in that before. We were like, I already ruined it, I might as well just keep going. The old Brandy most definitely would have done that. And I think that's a nice lesson for people to understand, that it doesn't have to be that way when we do treat ourselves, or we have, what? 1 second, I'm having a pop up on here. Or when we have something that we deem off plan, or what happens is, because we've deemed that food bad or naughty or something like that, we get into our heads and we think that like, well, now I'm just a bad person, so I'm just going to keep kind of going on this. And then when in all reality, if it could have just stopped at that treat, everything probably would have been just fine. So that's just a nice little lesson for you guys before I roll into protein here.
No, I love that call out, because I think I do that too, where it's like, oh my God, well, I already did that, so I might as well just F up my whole day. So
I know.
and it doesn't need to necessarily be like that. So I like that call out, because I had a treat as well on Valentine's Day. And because I've been through this before, I'm like, I didn't feel guilty about it, and I actually didn't need to eat the whole thing.
You're cutting out a little bit, Dina. Or maybe
awesome.
Am I?
And I appreciated what I had.
No, I was going to ask if it was
Brandy's
Dina or if it
frozen.
was me. So it's Dina.
Yeah. No, you're just but we heard most.
I know. I don't know what happened either.
Dina. But that's
okay.
I think that's a great message for people, because this is where people really this is where people fall off the wagon. But I'm under the impression that the wagon ceases to exist if we don't allow it to exist. Like the wagon, like there is no wagon in my life. Like if I have
there's no spoon.
Yes, like there's no such thing. And it's like, it's such a liberating thing to just pretend that wagon doesn't even exist. Because we hear it all the time about like holidays being a derailment. And it's just like, what if holidays were just part of the plan? Like it's a part of our life. The holidays come around every single year. And it's like, if we think of the holidays as a deviance from our plan, we're going to act like the holiday is a deviance from our plan, right? It's kind of like we're just putting that message out into the universe. And what happens for a lot of people is like, one meal is not a big deal. One treat, one meal, it's nothing. Like, it's literally nothing. I won't even have conversations with people about it when they're like, well, I had a graduation party or a birthday party and I eat a piece of cake or whatever. I'm like, cool. Like we're trying to major in the minors. You know what I mean? It's like, but we let those small, like those non-important one meals, right? The wedding, the birthday cake, the whatever, we let those kind of dictate because we attach morality to it, right? Because it was bad food or whatever. And then we let ourselves tailspin from it when in all reality, it's nothing. It's meaningless when we zoom out at the bigger picture. One meal, one treat, even a couple days, right? Christmas, a couple days long, like it doesn't have to be anything. It's not a pattern. It's nothing. When it becomes a pattern, this is what happens when it becomes a pattern is when we kind of get into that effort mode. And then all of a sudden one meal turns into 4 meals, turns into 5 meals, turns into 2 weeks of like going off our rocker. And it's just like, we don't have to treat it that way. And you know, I don't talk about calories a lot, but I also know that many people in the group are here for some fat loss goals. So I think it's important to like those little chocolate covered delicious pretzels or whatever that I ate on Valentine's Day. I don't know how many fucking calories they were. Like, let's just say 300. I had like a handful of them. Let's just say 300 calories. If we look at 300 calories, like in a day worth of eating, or even it's nothing, right? That's like a drop in the water. It's nothing. So it's like, if we would just enjoy that treat and then move on, but since we let it get to our heads, like, well, I ate something off bad. I'm so naughty. I shouldn't have done that. And then we let ourselves tailspin. Well, now that 300 calories turned into like, you know, a bag of Doritos and pizza and whatever. And it's like, well, now we blew the calories out of the water. So like, that's not ideal for people who have fat loss goals. So yeah.
Have you heard the story of the 2 monks crossing the water?
Tell us.
I love stories. Oh, it's so good. And it has to do with this. So, I mean, it has to do with life, but so I don't know, most monks, they take a vow of celibacy, but they also can't touch women. Like, they break their vow if they touch a woman. So these 2, I don't know if all of them are like that, but in the story, go with it. So they're going on their hike to the monastery, and it's about a day away. And about 2 hours into the hike, they come to a river, and there's a lady there who wants to cross, but she's a little fearful. It's a little deep. So the monk goes up over to her, picks her up. They cross the water and puts her down, and they start the rest of their way on their journey. And they don't talk to each other the entire time. So they get the rest of the day, it's evening, and they get to the monastery. And the one monk who didn't carry her looks at the one who did, and in just disbelief said, you broke your vow. How could you do that? Are you not worried? Have you not been? And the other monk was just kind of flabbergasted. He said, oh, you've carried her all day. I put her down when I took her on the other side of the water.
I love that story.
I love that.
I've never heard that before.
But that's, I mean, the brain gets fixated on something, whether you're saying the judgment of eating, whether we should even have judgment about eating it, period. Right. But if there is, then we carry that lady all day long, and it gets really heavy.
We do. And it's just,
that was good. It took a second for my brain to catch it, but I got
I know at the end, I was like, I think I'm tracking this, but yeah. And it does make, it does make total sense. And it can apply to this too. Like, we really let these, like, some of our choices around food define and carry the rest of our choices and our judgment throughout the rest of the day and the week and about ourselves and stuff like that. And it's like, this is no longer serving people, right? Like, this all or nothing kind of black or white thinking, especially when it comes to dieting, right? It's like, it is the worst. Somebody once said, I don't even know where I heard it from, you can't sustain perfection, but you can sustain imperfection. And like, that's what I really want people to start learning into with food. Cause it's like, I do think food's really important. Like, it is very important for our health. That's not new news, but it's also not that big of a deal at the same time. And sometimes we make big deals out of the things that we don't really need to make big deals at. And we need to look at like the overall picture. It's like, well, what does the entire week of food look like outside of this like cupcake you had for, a work party or something like that? It's just like, yeah. And I mean, there's a bazillion reasons why we do this. Our brains were also really hardwired to seek out criticism and judgment and the negative in things before we can look at the other side. There's our whole diet culture, which has programmed us over probably most of our existence on this planet that we have to be perfect, right? We have to be perfect when we're dieting. And if you mess up, if you eat off plan or whatever, that you suck, that you're a failure, that you're never going to be able to do it right. And then we pick up and then we kind of hold on to these narratives or these conditioned beliefs that diet culture has given to us in the first place. So I was thinking about this story. I'm like, I'm going to tell the story about the Valentine's Day treat when I have them on my Zoom call, because I've just seen, pitter patter of words in the reset about like falling off the wagon or like eating off plan, and we let that get the best of us sometimes when it doesn't have to be anything really. So there's that. So you guys, week 3, we're already on week 3, which is just bizarre. I want to talk to you guys about protein. If you haven't caught on yet, I love protein. It's like my favorite thing in the world. Actually, what I really love is how important eating protein is now becoming more and more in the mainstream. Like, I don't think this probably isn't the first time you guys have heard that we should probably be eating more protein. Societally, we should probably be eating more protein, and how important it is for strength, for longevity, for fat loss, for appetite regulation, for glucose control, for those folks who have metabolic syndrome, diabetes, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, all of these things. Like, it's super, super important. It's funny because years ago, no one was even talking about protein. Nobody was even talking about protein because everyone was in this meaningless battle about carbs and fat, fat.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
You froze for.
Yeah. And which one is the most unhealthy and which one's making America fat? And it was like, ding, 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 neither of them. And we're talking about the wrong thing because we should probably be talking about protein. In my world, in my approach, protein is the most important macronutrient. And most people simply aren't eating enough. So back to science class here, right? We have 3, I don't know, did we learn this in science class? Well, you learned it somewhere, right? We have 3 macronutrients. We have carbs, we have fat, we have protein. Carbs and fat are fuels, right? Those are fuels for the human body. They're converted into energy in the cells. Ketones too. Actually, we're going to talk about that next week. But carbs, fat, and ketones are the human's 3 main source of fuels. Protein, not a fuel source. I think this is where a lot of people get stumped because we think of like the macronutrients as fuel, and protein really isn't a fuel for the human body. Protein breaks down as amino acids in the body, and those amino acids are our nourishment. Okay, those are our nutrients. Those are like our essential nutrients to life. So protein provides nourishment, which is our essential nutrients. It literally builds the house that you live in. That's what I like to think of it. Like, it literally builds your entire house. So when you eat protein, it goes to the structural components of your house, to your body. So your muscles, your hair, your skin, your bones, your cells, your tissue, your hormones, all of these things. It builds and repairs the sustenance of the meat suit that we're walking around in. Literally, you're made of meat. Despite what that, I won't go too far. Despite what that Netflix documentary, whatever the hell that new one is, does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Is there anyone?
They eat what you
propaganda.
You are what you eat.
Yeah. I have so much to say about that one, but I won't I'll get too off track. But you're literally made of meat, guys. That's that. So when I say protein, no, I haven't watched the Netflix documentary either. A lot of people have sent it to me and like, are you going to watch this? And I was like, no, 100%. I don't have time to watch a documentary like that. But when I say protein, you guys, I am talking about animal-based protein, not plant protein. Humans are meat eaters. We're omnivores, right? We're probably carnivore-ish leaning omnivores. We're probably more opportunistic, there we go, omnivores, as in we ate meat or animals, and then when plants were available, right, like tubers, honey, fruits, berries, things like that, when those things were available, right, because they weren't always available all the time, then we would have eaten those things. So we're designed to eat meat. There's no traditional hunter-gatherer culture that exists in our world that do not have some kind of animals in their diets. Okay. Now, there are some cultures that are more plant forward for sure, depending on where you live, right? Like if you live more near the equator, you might have more access to like fruits and stuff like that year round compared to where we are. But there's not a culture that exists that does not have some kind of animal product in their diet, whether it's like the Maasai in Africa that, you know, their diet is mostly blood and milk. That would probably make most of our stomachs turn, but like that's what they mostly live on. And then they live on tubers and fruits and stuff like that are in season. So, and I've had a lot of conversations with people this week about cholesterol and things like that. And meat is not killing you. Saturated fat is not killing us. Cholesterol is not killing you. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Our species would have never survived if meat was killing us, right? Like meat was the culprit to making us all sick, healthy, fat, whatever. And it's interesting because actually protein and fat, the fat that naturally comes along with our protein, right? In nature, animals that have protein naturally come along with fat. It's the reason why we're so smart, the reason why we have our big brains. So Homo sapiens, right? That's like our species that branched off about 200,000 years ago. The theory is we outlived those other species because of the size of our brains, and the size of our brains has been attributed to our animal intake of protein and fat. So it's like fats is the reasons why we have big brains, and our species was able to kind of like outsmart and outlive the other species, depending on what you believe about evolution. Another interesting thing, this is all going to tie back together about the importance of meat, the importance of protein, but so we have our dietary food guidelines, right? Everybody's kind of familiar with them. They get updated every 5 years. So the last update we had was for the 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines. So we have about 1 more year until they have to be reviewed and changed and all of that stuff. So when in 2019, when they were reviewing what was going to be going into the 2020, 2025 dietary guidelines, we actually had to remove the upper limit of cholesterol and saturated fat because we have no more evidence that supports that those things cause cardiovascular disease, heart disease. Like, because there used to be limits, right? Like, don't go above, I don't even know what they were because I've never really paid attention to it, but don't go above however much cholesterol is saturated in your fat because there's a correlation between that and cardiovascular disease. We found that there's no evidence. We don't have evidence to support that anymore. So they actually had to remove that from the dietary guidelines. That did not make it onto the news. I don't know why, because it should have, because America is still very fearful of cholesterol and saturated fat because it's been kind of taught to us that it increases your risk to cardiovascular diseases and all these other metabolic syndromes. And we simply don't have the evidence for that anymore. So that's kind of crazy. So, and I always like to share the story of like, you're not a vegan or a vegetarian probably if you're watching this, because you probably know that the reset wouldn't be a good fit because I'm kind of on team, like, it is part of our biological diet to eat humans. But one time, like a few years ago, Dina, you'll remember this, I had a vegan slip into my group and I was like, Mr. Bob,
Yeah.
he wouldn't care that I called him out right now.
He's not a vegan anymore.
I know he's not, but he was when he went to the reset, and he was like, I was
Yeah.
like, Dina, I don't know about this. Like, he's
I
gonna be
knew he wasn't committed. So.
I know. And we just like we always giggle about that because you know, he was set on doing it at the time, right? Like he wanted to try it out because he heard that it was very healthy, even though his vegan diet was like Oreos and Twinkies, right? Which I guess are technically vegan. So it was kind of like a standard, it was like the standard American diet vegan edition is what Bob was doing. But anyways, he joined the group and he was like, whatever, I'm just gonna do what Brandy tells me to do. And like he ended up feeling really, really great by the end of it. And it's like, is it because of like the vegan part? I believe partially just because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals that we get in animals that we cannot get in plants. That's just fact. And like obviously we removed a lot of processed food, so that probably made him feel better too. But I would just think it's a funny story about Bob. Actually, Bob just messaged me the other day and he's like, Brandy, when are you doing another reset? I'm like, Bob, it's happening right now.
I told him about it. He's got a lot going on, but I did tell him.
I know. So we'll get him next time. But I know some people choose not to eat meat for like moral, ethical, religious reasons, things like that, which is totally fine. But I also want people to understand that's more of like a social construct, a cultural construct than a biological one. Our biology and our physiology is really set up to be somewhat of meat eaters. And I always share this because I think it's because I always still have people ask like, well, but I heard it's really bad for the environment. I heard that it leads to colon cancer, like all of these things. There is a book called Sacred Cow. It's also a documentary on Netflix. It is fantastic. It's written by Rob Wolf, who is kind of one of the lead movers in paleo. Like he wrote the Paleo Solution. He wrote a bunch of books. And then Diane Rogers, who's a nutritional dietitian, I believe. But basically the book, where is the first page here? Where is it? But it basically goes through all of the nutritional, moral, and environmental aspects of eating meat and kind of where a lot of our flawed science is. So I always tell people, like, if you have concerns about eating meat, whether it's for the environment, for moral or ethical reasons, for nutritional reasons, read this book or watch the documentary. Okay, so here's a couple of key points about why I want you guys to be focusing on protein. Animal protein is the most satiating, nutrient-dense, bioavailable food for humans, okay? Satiating, nutrient-dense, bioavailable food. So let's break that statement down for a second. Bioavailability, what the hell does that mean? That's kind of a mouthful. Basically, you guys don't have to remember, well, this was in your weekly content anyway. So bioavailability is basically, so bio, right, our biology, and available, how available the nutrients are to our biology, okay? So when we know that animal protein is superior to plant protein because of its bioavailability, so how efficiently your body can absorb and take up the nutrients that are found in food. Just because a food has nutrients in it doesn't mean our bodies can properly absorb it. Take, for example, think of, what's an example? A piece of bread, right? You have your loaf of bread, you turn it over, you read the nutrition label, and you're like, well, I don't know, this bread has B vitamins, it says it has iron, it says it has protein, it says it has some other vitamins and minerals. But the thing is, those nutrients get bound to those anti-nutrients. Remember, we talked about anti-nutrients last week that are found in grains, and those anti-nutrients binds to the nutrients and they kind of like pull them out of our body, right? Our bodies just simply can't absorb them when they're bound around that anti-nutrient and they get pulled out. So since animals are a part of our biological diet, we have the machinery to use and break down the nutrition in those things, right? We can We're designed to chew the meat, to digest the meat, to absorb the nutrients in it. We have canine teeth, right? We have our canine teeth. We have acidic stomachs. We have a short colon, much opposite than like grazing animals and gorillas and things like that. So all of that is in our design to help us derive nutrition from animals and not so much from plants. Okay, those essential nutrients, that's what I'm talking about. So this is why plant-based proteins aren't super great for humans. They have nutrients in them, but we really can't access them very easy because of those anti-nutrients. So plant-based, vegan, vegetarian folks tend to have diets higher in grains and nuts and seeds because we're kind of told that those are good sources of protein. But again, they're really not, because we can't absorb a lot of the protein that are in those sources of plants. I should note for you guys, just in case I haven't talked about this yet, nuts and seeds are not protein. Okay, in the space that I play around with, nuts and seeds, cheese, bacon, I know, I hope I don't kill anybody's soul on that one, are not great sources of protein. They're delicious, don't get me wrong. Put bacon on your plate because it's freaking delicious. But like, you can tell, right? You like pick up a piece of bacon and you're like there's not a lot of meat on it. It's mostly fat, and nothing wrong with fat, but I just don't want people to count, even though we're not counting, to count that towards like our protein dominant meal. And like nuts and seed, because there's meager amounts of protein in nuts and seeds, and it's just really not that bioavailable to humans anyways. So protein is your meats, eggs, and dairies. Okay. I always get somebody that is like, what, bacon's not protein? I'm like, not really, like, it's delicious, put it on your plate, but it's like it's not a super good source of protein. So that's what bioavailability is our body's ability to efficiently absorb and utilize all of the nutrients, and we can do that better from animal protein than we can from plant protein. Nutrient density, that's the other main point here. So you can get all of your micronutrients, just about all of your micronutrients. People might argue that you can't get vitamin C from animals. You can if you eat organ meats. Not a lot of people do, but vitamin C is found in liver. I have some liver pate downstairs waiting to be spread across my beef patty that Tim is currently making. So animal protein just about handles all of your micronutrients. So you can get your essential fatty acids, right? Those are your fats, your essential amino acids, that's your protein, your vitamins, your minerals, your hydration. Did you guys know that meat is inherently super rich in water? Not a lot of people know that. Animal proteins are complete proteins. You guys remember that back from biology, right? We have complete proteins and we have incomplete proteins. Animals are complete proteins. I don't even know. I can't even remember off the top of my head. I think there's like 9 essential amino acids. Yeah, I'd have to open my biology textbook here. Animals contain all of them. Plants do not. This is why you see if people are vegan or vegetarian, they have to kind of like mix and match their food, right? Like rice and beans is a good example of that, because you have to mix and match to kind of get that full profile of your required amino acids. And it's very tedious, and many people don't do it correctly, hence why a lot of those folks have to supplement, because there's a lot of vitamin minerals that you can't get from plants, iron, B12, some other things. So it's like we end up having to supplement. So anyways, that's kind of the difference there. Animal proteins are complete proteins, plant proteins are incomplete proteins. And another fun fact, when we look at the nutrient density of animals, like if we just looked at all of the animals and we rated them on a scale of nutrient density, beef, red meat, is at the top. Red meat kind of takes the cake over chicken, fish, pork, whatever. Not that all those aren't great protein sources if you like those protein sources, but red meat is kind of takes the cake there. And above red meat, again, we're going back to organ meats, and a lot of people will cringe, but I guarantee your guys' grandparents or great grandparents a lot of them probably ate organ meats because we did the whole nose to tail thing a little bit more than we do in this day and age. And I'm not telling you guys you have to go start like, you know, forking down. I don't know if anybody knows who Liver King is, like a social media, don't. But I mean, this man's, he's like the primal extremist in this like animal-based world. But I mean, he's knocking back like raw testicles and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like he's just like very extreme. So I'm like, people, you don't need to do that. So don't look at him then, because you're probably gonna cringe. He also looks like he's on steroids. So I'm like, I don't know. So the last part of this, so we had bioavailability, nutrient density, and satiety. Okay, that's the last one. Probably the most important aspect of protein, especially when it comes to regulating appetite and for fat loss, if that is one of your goals, is this concept of satiety. Protein is gram for gram the most satiating macronutrient that we have. It's above carbohydrates, it's above fat. Satiety is how well your food keeps your hunger at bay and for how long. Okay, does that make sense? And you guys have been practicing this hopefully since day one, when we kind of got off this meal snack paradigm, and we divorced ourselves from eating with the clock, and we tried to tap back into hunger and eating a meal of food when we get hungry, and eating that meal all the way to satiety. That's what I really wanted you guys to try to lean into. So when you eat protein, you hit satiety quicker. And what happens for most people is you end up eating less calories overall because you hit satiety quicker. There's this hypothesis. It's called the protein leverage hypothesis. It's very popular in like the nutrition science space, but it basically states that your body will continue to queue up hunger until your protein requirements are met, right? Until your amino acid, there's like a piece of hair or something floating on my eyelash, and it's driving me absolutely crazy. So yeah, it basically says that your body will keep queuing up hunger until your protein requirements, your protein threshold is met. Every animal in nature, okay, will eat until their protein requirements are met. Funny. So I just ordered a new book, literally just came, delivered by Amazon at my front door before I jumped on this phone call. It's called Eat Like the Animals. It's been on my like book list in Amazon forever, and it takes me forever to get through books nowadays with Murray. I just don't have as much time for leisurely reading. But I was like flipping through it before I came up here, and like one of the first pages that I had flipped to, this is what it says. It says, in a protein poor but energy rich food environment, humans will overeat carbs and fat to try to reach their protein target. However, when the only available diet is high in protein, humans will underconsume carbs and fat. But it's playing into this theory that all animals in nature, whether you're a human, whether you're a bear, whether you're a bird, you're a frog, they will continue to eat until their amino acid, until their protein threshold is met, if they are omnivores or carnivorous animals. But even animals that are strictly herbivores, right, they can take those plants and they can upcycle it into usable protein for them. We are not those animals. So the same logic applies to them, but they're just eating plants and they're upcycling those plants and they can make it into protein. Like that's how cows and stuff do it. Or gorillas. People are like, well, gorillas eat plants and they're strong. I was like, yeah, but because their bodies can upcycle those nutrients and make it into protein. We do not have that physiology. So that argument is very weak, but you hear it a lot. So I got off track there. So when your body sends a signal to your cells and then to your tummy that you're hungry, it's looking for those amino acids. And if it doesn't get them, your body will encourage you to keep eating. So imagine if you're eating a relatively low protein diet, which many people do, And your, you have your bagel and your oatmeal or for breakfast, your pasta and your sandwich for lunch, and your apple and your chips and pretzel. I'm just making this up. I don't really know. Your apples and your chips and your pretzels for your snack or whatever. You're going to have to eat a lot of those foods in order to hit your protein target. Does that make sense? So what happens then in turn is we tend to eat more calories than we need, because those calories don't have that required amino acid to signal satiety. Okay, think of that. Protein is your satiety leverage. That's what we need to hit, and protein is what we need to hit in order to hit satiety. So this is where the calorie bros, I'm not in that space. This is where the calorie bros really have it wrong, because not all calories are created equal, because some calories encourage you to stop eating and some calories encourage you to keep eating, so I hate when people say that, like, well, it's all that calories is the only thing that matters, calories in, calories out. It's like, that's old news. So protein is kind of like, I don't like to call it a free food, but I can't really think of a better word to use, but it's free in the sense that protein is not stored. Okay, so I kind of hinted at the fact that carbs and fat are energy, right, for our body. They can be either burned as energy or they can be stored on our body, right? We know that carbs, fat can be stored. Protein cannot, and I don't think I'm not sure many people understand that. That's why I'm saying it's a free food, because it can't really be stored on our body, because it's needed to maintain our house, right? It's kind of like it's a in-demand substance in our body. So when we eat protein, it's going to places, right? Protein's not going to go into storage. That narrative doesn't even really exist. It's going to your muscles, it's going to your skin, it's going to your bones, it's going to your cells, it's going to make your sex hormones. Our sex hormones are made out of these amino acids, right? Our immune system is made out of these amino acids. So protein you can't store, and it's really hard to overeat too. I don't know if anybody's tried to overeat protein. I always say, like, the theoretical omelet, like, go scramble yourself 10 eggs. You are not going to overeat them. Like, satiety will kick in when you're eating protein far before you will overeat it. So that's another important thing about protein. We have to eat it in order to signal satiety. So what happens is I meet with a lot of women, not just women. I do actually have some men clients. It's just not as popular, and they tell me what they're eating throughout the day, right? I have this huge intake that's like 15 pages long when people work with me on one-on-one, and they kind of write down, like, they give me a snapshot of their day. And it's like the beginning of the day is like not eat, coffee, not eat, a banana, a smoothie maybe, and then lunch they have their little chicken breast salad, which has like 3 ounces of chicken breast and then rabbit food on there. And then, mid-afternoon, it's like something from a vending machine, right? Some chips or an apple or a handful of almonds, right? That all the time. I just had a handful of almonds. And then dinner, is maybe protein with some like pasta or some rice. If you add that up, I mean, that's like 60 grams of protein tops. Like that, I mean, Murray probably eats 60 grams of protein. I put a little video in the group of her going to town on a chicken thigh. And it's like the best thing. Like that was like about as like primal as you could probably get. If you didn't watch that video, go into the group, because it's just hilarious watching her eat that. It's like a real animal in the wild catching a chicken or something like that. So the moral of the story, double down on protein at all your meals, you guys. So eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, eat your non-grain based starches, whatever, I don't care. We can put that stuff, but I want you guys to, we haven't really talked about anything else besides tapping the brakes on grains and seed oils, right? That was kind of the first thing that we did. Eating with hunger and satiety, breaking fast like a king. That was last week, where our first meal of the day should be our most substantial, predominantly protein meal. And then now every subsequent meal you eat, however many meals you're eating, 2, 3, 4, whatever, I want protein to kind of be the focal point of that. And eat it first. Try that. Some people are just like, eat the protein first, and then at least, because if you eat the other stuff first, you're probably going to you're going to need to eat more in order to hit satiety. So, sorry, something's popping up here. I know. Dina, did you see it? Oh my God. It is just like, she's just like, glossed eyes over, and she's just like,
Oh my God, that was so, I just watched it. I'm like, oh my God, that's too much.
And then she picks up the piece of skin. Like,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna have dessert.
I was like, get it, girl. Like, that was her lunch. Like, the funny thing is, Murray hates vegetables, and I don't even care. It's like,
out of 5 kids, I have one that that had a piece of salad one time. When there were babies, they had vegetables. He has not. He's 18 now. He has not had a vegetable since. Doctor says he's fine. I have one that won't eat any fruit. I mean, they see, but they like steak.
So individual. It's
you
like,
gotta pick and choose.
Yeah, it's one of those things, but I think it's interesting because I do have, like, our daycare lady totally supports this, whatever. She also probably thinks it's a little funny that we just send straight meat and fruit to daycare. I mean, the girl just, like, we buy the Costco frozen beef patties, and like we make that on repeat, the chicken thighs, like I cook her eggs and sausage for her breakfast. Like, she just doesn't eat a lot of vegetables. But we have this narrative, right? Like with kids, like forcing them to eat, like, well, if you don't eat your broccoli or whatever. And it's like, when we think about essential nutrients, essential nutrients, you guys, means they are essential to life. If you don't get them through your food, you would die, right? That's what essential nutrients are. And those are found in animal protein. So it's like, when I'm thinking about the nutrition that Murray really, really needs, human nutrition, not just for a baby, but even more important for her, right? Because her body and her brain and stuff like that are still growing. Our bodies and brains aren't really growing. They're not supposed to be growing anymore, right? Into our adult. You get that essential nutrition from animals. So I'm like, I don't know, like, I have to believe that she knows, like, she has that instinctual thing about what to eat and what not to eat, and we roll with it. You know what I mean? We didn't give her any grains until she was at least over a year, because what I talked to you guys about, like the grains and the anti-nutrients and kind of causing that gut permeability, kind of damaging our gut lining. Sometimes we think, well, they're kids, and like, I just want to, like, let them eat those things. And it's like, I like, there's no judgment or anything like that. And I understand that. And that food still behaves the same way in children as it does. Like, this food doesn't just behave in you guys differently because you're in the reset or because we're adult. That's how that food generally behaves in all of humans, whether we're a little, 2-foot high human or whether we're an adult human. So I just think it's interesting. And I've delved more into like childhood nutrition and stuff like that, being that I have Murray now. So it's just interesting. So double down on protein, whatever protein you like. If you think you're eating enough, just humor me and eat a little bit more, right? Add another egg to your plate, add a little bit more chicken, add a little more half patty of your bird, like whatever it is that you're eating. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to get full and you're not going to be able to finish it, right? And then your wonderful dog gets to benefit from that, or you can put it in your fridge for leftovers or whatever it is. We used to, those of you, Dina, you might, well, you guys all might remember this. So way back when, in kind of the fitness space, we used to have this theory that your body could only absorb 30 grams of protein at a time. Do you guys remember this?
That was a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But so when we were telling people to eat, we would tell people like no more than 30 grams per meal, because your body can't use any more of that protein, and we would end up just excreting it out. We actually, it is old news, but not a lot of people know it's old news. There was actually just a research article that came out in the last couple of weeks that we now have no upper limit of protein. Like, we now know that whatever amount of protein that we eat in a day, our body can use damn near all of it. We don't just like piss out our protein because it's valuable. Like, there's so much structure to our body that needs those amino acids that there's no way our body's just going to excrete them like they're like not helpful. So that's old news. So it's like, have like my morning meal probably has 50 grams of protein in it. I don't know. I don't count it, but if I had to take a guess, it's a lot. And I don't worry about me just peeing it out later in the day. So if you guys thought that, I absolve you.
There's a recent doctor, and I don't follow this stuff like you do, so I don't remember his name, but he really cool. I can't remember what university he's with. And he was saying that with the new research that actually, I don't do this, I'm just saying that you should have at least, it's either 25 or 30 grams per meal in order for it to kick in the benefits that you're talking about that create, I can't remember now even what it is, so I'd have to go and look it. But he said if you're not hitting, and I don't remember the number because this has been probably 6 or 7 months, but 6 months or 25 to 30 grams, in a way he was saying you're pissing out the window. Now, I don't measure it to know, so I don't necessarily believe it, but now it's almost the opposite of what you were saying.
Yeah, and there's truth to that, Amy. I know what you're talking about. So there is actually, so there's no upper limit, but we do actually have a lower limit in terms of the amount of amino acids needed to provoke muscle synthesis, protein synthesis. Does that make sense? So there is a lower limit, Amy. Like it is recommended to not have like less than that because we're not going to get that protein synthesis. Ooh, that's a hard word for me to say today. Because we needed a certain amount of amino acids. So no upper limit, but there is a lower limit. But I have full faith because I've seen a lot of your guys' meals that you're at least hitting 20 grams of protein per meal because you guys are already nailing like the protein dominant thing. So yeah, that's a good point though, Amy. So by the way, really quick, I mentioned earlier protein and its naturally occurring fat. I know somebody asked in the Facebook group about my thoughts on fattier proteins, like fattier cuts of meat. Here's the thing, most protein naturally has fat with it in nature, right? An egg has its yolk, a chicken has its breast and its thighs and its skin and its dark meat. Beef has fat, fish typically has some natural fat to it, depending on kind of what fish it is. An egg white, what doesn't exist in nature, you guys, is an egg white. That's a food company creation in response to our fat phobia, and it's a diet culture construct, right? But and they taste like ass, let's be honest. Like a plate of egg whites taste really, really bad, and you have to put a lot of stuff on it. So there's a narrative in our health and wellness space of eating only lean meats. You guys have heard this, right? Especially you come from a background of like bodybuilding or just health and wellness. Like there's this narrative that has been driven into us to only eat lean meat. And that is a diet culture construct, right? Because like extra lean meats don't really exist in nature. Like if you were to go out into the wild and kill a chicken, you would have a bunch of parts on that chicken, right? You'd have some fattier parts, you'd have some leaner parts. Actually, if you were a hunter-gatherer and you killed a chicken, the chicken breast probably would have gone to the dogs. No offense, but that's like the least nutritionally important part of the chicken. So those are kind of diet culture construct because I see a lot of people like chicken breast. And if you love chicken breast, like no judgment. They're like I eat chicken breast. I won't say that. I don't really like chicken breast. I don't know why I was about to say that I sometimes eat because it's not my preference. I like red meat. That's okay. But sometimes when I see people eat chicken breast or like the amount of extra lean ground turkey from Jennie-O that I put down in my dieting days kind of makes me want to barf, or tilapia. Oh, like I ate so much of it. So I just want people to ask themselves, are they eating those foods because they like those foods, the chicken breast, the ground turkey, like these leaner meats, or is it kind of just that like diet culture programming that's been drilled in us for so long that fattier cuts of meat somehow magically make us fat and unhealthy, which is not true. So I'm not telling you guys to like eat all fatty meats or eat all lean meats, but in nature, we would have had this nice little balance of both of them, right? Because we would have eaten more of the animal than we do today. So, I don't know if I had any more. So the food fundamental was eat more protein, right? And the other part of that was that food satisfaction. That kind of ties into the whole chicken breast thing. I want you guys to love the food that you eat. If you do not love the food that you eat, you are dead in the water. Okay. Like it's never going to work. We all know how it ends up when we try to stick to lame diet food that we don't really like. And then we try to white knuckle and willpower our way through that. Like it ends in a disaster. So it's like, if you don't like chicken, don't eat like chicken. If you don't like broccoli, don't eat broccoli, right? There's 100 other vegetables that you can eat. If you like vegetables, if you don't like vegetables, I'm not really mad about that either. Don't eat a lot of vegetables. I don't like chicken breast. I don't like ground turkey that much. So we don't eat those things. I always giggle when people are like, when we hide vegetables and things, like, well, I just made a smoothie and I put in spinach and whatever. And like, then I ask that person, like, do you like spinach? They're like, no. I'm like, well, why the fuck are you eating spinach then? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think these foods have been, have had this health halo around it, like spinach and chia seeds and quinoa and like as these like great health foods or these like superfoods and things like that. And it's just like, if we really want to get down to the nitty gritty of what a superfood is, your best bet is it's probably from an animal, right? Whatever kind of protein an animal, that's probably in eggs. Like that's probably more of your superfood than spinach or chia seeds or quinoa or anything like that. But I see so many people like forcing down some of these foods, spinach and kale and quinoa, and they hate it. I'm like, why are you like, don't eat that then? You know, it's like, that's never going to stick if you don't absolutely like something. So make sure that you guys are finding foods that are, they have to provide satisfaction, right? Like joy of eating it. And satiety, things that actually keep you well fed. Those are kind of those two main things. Time is at 5:58. You guys, that was pretty on the ball.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's all I had today. I'm gonna go down and hit my burger. I appreciate you guys all that were on here live with me, and for all of you guys catching the replay. And I will see you guys next week.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brandy.
Bye.
Nice to see you
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Amy.